It's an honor to have Doug Aldrich of the Dead Daisies joining us to talk about their new single, Unspoken. Doug, welcome to the Banger Music Hour.
How are you, John?
I'm great, Doug. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
We're here to talk about your brand new single, Unspoken. Why don't you?
Yes. It was written about a little less than a year ago. We were just starting to get our feet wet with Glenn coming into the band, and really just the first day, I believe, of getting together. We got together at a studio called Sunset Sound in Los Angeles and started pounding through some ideas, and Unspoken was one that Glenn had that we played through it and made some adjustments and got it to where we thought it should be, and then we recorded it. And then when we were later in the year, when we were putting together the songs for the album, we weren't sure if it was even going to go on the album. We were not sure because we had so many good songs, but Glenn said, "Hey man, I really believe in this song. We got to put it on the album, even if it's not a single or whatever." And lo and behold, it went on the record. And then we had some songs that we were going to start with, and it wasn't going to be Unspoken, but Unspoken's got a really great message for this time period. And Glenn, everything Glenn writes in his lyrics and stuff is really from his heart, and it was almost like, he wrote this before COVID-19 and all that, but it really relates to giving people hope and being able to let go and start over. And so that's why we went with that song first, and the response has been great.
Yeah, and that came out late April, right?
Yeah, I think it was 24th, maybe it was the 18th of April. I'm not sure, but it's fairly recent. And so we're with the way that the COVID's going, we're kind of release a new track every month or two, and near the end of the year, when we can make an actual plan to support the album, we'll release the whole album.
Yeah, basically to tide everybody over, because they're probably dying for new Dead Daisy music. They're probably just to tide us over till you're ready to tour or something, right?
Yeah, which won't be probably till next year. So we're gonna. I would say probably. I mean, I'm guessing, but I would say maybe by the end of the year, the album will come out, and then we'll go from there and start getting ready to tour at the beginning of the year.
Now, I'm fascinated by the songwriting process. You said that Glenn brought in the song Unspoken, but what's the normal process for the band when you're putting together songs?
It depends. I mean, a lot of times I'll have an idea and I'll take it to Glenn. Glenn's Glenn's the vocalist and a songwriter, so he can actually bring a complete song in if he wants to, and then we can adjust it, or maybe I might ask him, "Hey, is it cool if I change the riff a little bit here or there? What do you think? I think it would be good if we did this." But generally, we all get together and we present our ideas and we play through them, and then everybody gets a chance to put their stamp on it. So even if it was with Unspoken, we made some changes as a band on it, and it got a chance to have everybody be invested into the track. The majority of the tracks on the album were probably music that Glenn and I proposed, and then David and I proposed some. But for example, when Dean plays on a track, there's several different ways he could play on a certain track, and it really shapes the song. So for me personally, I would include Dean as a songwriter on the album as well.
And so you're putting these songs together, do you do it like on the road when you're touring, or do you really prefer like sitting in a studio and just hammering the stuff out away from the touring?
Everything and all of the above. When you're touring, sometimes you'll get an idea. A lot of times though, when you're touring, you're so focused on promoting and being prepared for the gigs and keeping your chops up, all that kind of stuff. It's not as a creative a time, maybe, mostly. But when you're at home, and like for me, when I come in my studio, on my property, I have a little studio that's isolated from the house and the kids, and I come out and I can, focus on just playing guitar and having fun, and I'll come up with, at a sitting, I might come up with 5 or 6 different riffs, 5 or 6 different song ideas, even some melodies. Sometimes I'll just throw down a vocal melody just because it's in my head. I don't want to forget it. And then I'll move on, and I'll come back and listen, and I'll go, oh, that one's okay, that one's all right. And then I'll go, whoa, that one's really cool. I can hear now where that might go. And then I'll pick up on that one and keep going. Eventually, when people want to know what I've been working on, I'll pick, say if I've got 10 song ideas, one might be one that I present to the band.
And through all the years that you've been doing this, has the way you've done writing changed a little bit? Because now you can have your home studio. Back in the day, early on, I would imagine you didn't have a studio to put these songs together and to try all that stuff out.
Well, actually, believe it or not, back in the 80s, back in 80, I think my first little studio situation came around 85 or 86 when they were making little 4-track recorders with a cassette player. And somebody gave me a 4-track cassette player. So basically what you would do is you'd have 4 tracks to put your ideas on a cassette.
Yep.
And some people don't even know what a cassette is probably, but I could put a drum riff, the drum beats that you could get in these boxes sounded so goofy, but it would kind of simulate a click track, and then you could put a bass on one track and then a guitar on one track and a vocal on another. So you could have a demo, and in my bedroom, wherever I was, which I lived in a dozen places throughout LA, I always had that little studio situation with me to try and make ideas. Now it's unbelievable. With just an iPhone, there's so many times I'll just hum an idea into my phone, like a guitar riff. Like you might hum the riff to "Smoke on the Water." That's what I do. I'll hum a riff or a melody that gets in my head. It's in my iPhone. I'll email it to myself and import it to Pro Tools. I'll find the tempo that I was thinking of and build a track around that that crazy idea.
No, that's awesome. Now, I was on Facebook just amazed at your vast arsenal of guitars. Is there a favorite for writing?
No, there's a few favorites that I'd love to play. For writing, I mean, a lot of times actually I'll write on an acoustic guitar. I started doing that with David Coverdale. That was something that we would do just because you can play ideas and talk without getting over inundated with a guitar sound. So I have a Gibson Hummingbird that I really love, and I got a couple of Martins that I love, and they're all set up in different tunings. So, I'll pick it up and something will inspire me, and I'll get an idea for a song. But as far as my electric guitars go, I have a Gold Top Les Paul is generally my guitar of choice.
And how do you pick, like, when you're recording these songs, how do you pick the specific guitar for the specific song to record with?
Well, I'll go with my first intuition first and try it with an amp and see what it sounds like. And if it sounds great, then I'll just go with that. Otherwise, sometimes I go, maybe that other guitar, let me try that other one. And they're all a little different.
Yep.
And then you say, okay, I like that guitar with that amp. Maybe I'm going to try that other amp, a 50-watt Marshall or a 100-watt Marshall. Or even sometimes now we'll record with guitars straight into Pro Tools. And then in Pro Tools, you can put an amp simulator, which are pretty unbelievable now. The technology is just insane. But generally, I would use a Les Paul with humbuckers for the majority of what I do.
It gives you that fatter sound because the Les Paul's just that heavy guitar.
It's just got a nice overall mix. You can turn the volume down and get some cleaner sounds that are nice and warm and tubey, that are really nice. For the song Unspoken, it was a full, balls to the wall, kind of cleanish, heavy sound. Not unlike, AC/DC or something like that.
My favorite band, AC/DC. Thank you.
I love them, man. Those guys, I I hope they will continue after the virus is done, you know?
Yeah, I hear they were working in secret on something new with some
That's what I
Malcolm
heard too.
parts. Yeah, so that'd be awesome if they do that.
Yeah.
Now, recording all these years, I'm sure you've done the 24-track reel-to-reel up into the digital. Do you really like the new stuff a lot better compared to like the old style recording? Because there's definitely sound differences in the qualities.
Yeah, I mean, originally there was big sound qualities differences. I had a 24-track tape machine that was a great machine, and I cut a lot of records here at my house on that. And I could go to a proper drum room, record drums, and then bring the tapes back to my house. When it started to become Pro Tools started to become really convenient because you could do so much by putting stuff on a hard drive, but the sound was not quite exactly as rich.
Yep.
But as they got into higher bit rates, like instead of it being 16-bit or 24-bit, they got up to 96-bit now, and it's 96 hertz, I believe. Either way, it's ultra high quality. It's very much like tape in terms of the clarity. What would happen with tape is tape would have a natural compression that when you hit the tape with a guitar sound or something, you'd put that guitar sound to the tape, and then it would come back off the tape even punchier because the tape would add that natural compression. Now in Pro Tools, they have all kinds of plugins and compressors that can simulate that, but it's so subtle. It's almost like you couldn't really put your hand on it. And now Pro Tools has become, I think, the go-to. I ended up selling my tape machine because it was just nobody was working in that format anymore.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody is that I can tell. I've always felt it gave a little bit warmer sound than
well, yeah,
the digital.
that's what I'm saying. The more you ran a tape, I mean, here's a scenario for having a tape machine. If I was recording guitars, I'd have to wake up in the morning, come and clean the tape heads and the rollers with alcohol and Q-tips, and then you'd put the tape on. And don't forget, a tape, those big reel-to-reel tapes was only, at regular speed, was only 15 minutes long. You could get 3 songs on it. And so you put on the song, the reel that's got the song that you want to work on, and you work on that song and go back and forth. And as you're recording, you go back and forth on that tape hundreds of times, and every time it goes across, the tape rolls across the rollers, a little bit of tape face sheds off. So every 2 hours or so, you'd have to pull the tape off and clean the tape heads, because as the tape heads started getting clogged with the tape debris, the magnetic particles, the sound would not be as good. But what happens is the more that you do that, the longer you run a tape back and forth over the heads, the duller it gets, which it actually warms. It kind of gets more warmer. So by the time a song was recorded, the tape had probably 10% less high end than it did when you first started with the song. So therefore, when they go in to mix it, they would always be adding top end on the drums, then the guitars, and then a little less on the vocals, because that was usually the last thing to go on. So it's really an interesting process with tape. With Pro Tools, you don't have to worry about that.
Right, you can splice on Pro Tools and put things together. Back in the day with the tape, if you were going to splice it, you almost had to be a magician or a surgeon and cut that precisely and then stick the tape together.
Yes, sir. It was so funny. I actually ended up getting good at it, because basically what you would do is if you wanted to cut a section out, for example, you would have to find the kick drum where the downbeat was. Yep. And you'd have to, the tape rolls so fast at 30 IPS, 30 inches per second, you'd have to hit the stop right where you think it is, and then you'd have to put it into shuttle mode or edit mode, and you'd have to move the tape back and forth, and it'd be like, woof, 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 woof. You'd find the kick drum, hoping that it was the right one. Then you have to get on the front end of the kick drum, so right before it starts going, woof, you'd get it right there, pop the tape off, cut it, then you'd put the tape back together, and then you'd roll to the other end of the section that you wanted to cut, and you'd try to find that same, the end where the kick drum, where the first kick drum of the next part is, you'd find that same thing, you'd cut it, then you'd pull that tape all the way out until you get to that splice that you would put in, and then you take that splice apart, and put those two pieces together, and that piece of tape that you've got, which was long because 30 IPS, that would be your edit that you took out. And hopefully the edit that you made worked, and sometimes you'd have to re-record a guitar part over the splice because it might not have worked out or whatever. Just you'd have to make sure it worked with the drums, and then you could do it. But man, so many times people would make mistakes and they'd cut in front on the other end of the kick drum, and so there'd be a piece of tape a half an inch long that they had to splice back in. And eventually, with some sessions like Metallica and stuff where they did a lot of splicing, the tape would be rolling and it would just be going with all the splices going past the heads. They'd make this really particular sound, and it's funny, but it worked. And I'll tell you, the thing is, at that time, people really had to be on their game and ready. So pre-production was a big deal. You had to be ready to play when you went in the studio. You couldn't, like now, you can go in the studio and not even know what the song's going to be, and not even knowing, you can kind of punch in and fix it and do all this stuff. But back then, you really had to be ready.
Right. If it's just basic verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, you only have to record the verse once and the chorus once and slap all that together, and you've got it down.
That's right.
Back in the day, there was no way of doing that, or not an easy way of doing that anyways.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, it's been awesome to talk to you. I really appreciate it, John, and I hope your listeners enjoy the song, Unspoken. It's the new record's called Holy Ground. Sorry, I was going to say Higher Ground. That's Stevie Wonder. It's Holy Ground, and it'll be out later in the year at some point. But Unspoken is the first one, and we're really excited about it. Hope your listeners like it.
That's great, and they can find all your stuff at thedeaddaisies.com, right?
That's right. Yep.
All right, Doug, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
I hope to talk to you soon, bro. Thank you so much, man.